The screen flickers. Static crawls across the frame. A VHS logo hums for a second, then warps into a single line of text. This tape was not meant for you. The picture cuts to black, but the whir of a tape keeps spinning, and in that dark, you hear someone's breathing. Not the narrator's. Yours. You're listening to Murmurs and Mysteries, the originals. Unverified recordings. Untraceable origins. This story was never meant to be heard. If you're hearing this, you've already been marked. Subscribe before the next transmission. I've collected VHS tapes for years. Obscure horror, forgotten TV pilots, dusty clamshells from thrift stores. Most of them are garbage, a few are gold. Last month, I bought a lot of 5 tapes from an eBay seller who called himself Dust Reels 89. They arrived in a battered cardboard box, wrapped in newspaper dated 1996. 4 of them were labeled in Sharpie, titles I recognized. But the 5th, it was blank. No case, no sticker, just a black cassette with deep scratches, like it had been shoved into a machine over and over. There was a piece of masking tape across the side, but the writing had been scrubbed off, leaving only a faint indentation, letters I couldn't quite read. That was the one I slid into the VCR first. The TV went blue, then black. The word play burned into the corner in blocky white letters. A soft hiss filled the room. The tape's breath. The frame stabilized on a wide shot of a living room. My living room. Same crooked photo above the couch. Same ring on the coffee table where a mug once sweated into the wood. The camera sat low, as if perched on the TV stand. Angled up. I don't film from there. I don't film at all. A timestamp ticked forward in that cheap digital font. No, 12:04. No, 12:05. SP glowing proud in the corner. I checked my wall clock. The times didn't match. The tape was ahead by a minute. On screen, the lamp glowed warmer than mine. Amber, not white. Shadows leaned wrong. Focus hunted, found, lost, then found again. The front door in the tape opened. A man walked in. He didn't look like me, but he moved like me. Keys in the bowl. Shoulder bump to shut the latch. A glance toward the couch. A woman followed, shrugging off her coat. Behind them, a girl slid in clutching a stuffed rabbit with one bare ear. None of them looked at the camera. None of them saw me. The man dropped a stack of envelopes on the table. The top one flashed my name, my handwriting. I looked at my own table. Bare. Just the wood stain ring and a grain of salt I'd forgotten to wipe away. On screen, the woman hit the kitchen switch. The light in their world flared a half-second before mine did. Their kettle clicked on. A moment later, mine gave a dull, sympathetic pop. The girl trailed her hand across the spines of my bookshelf, stopping at a gap where a camcorder would sit if I owned one. She smiled at nothing. The rabbit's ear dragged dust. Static crawled like fog along the bottom of the frame. The man spoke too soft to hear. The woman laughed. The same laugh, looped, like someone pressing rewind until it fit. The lens shifted toward the hallway mirror. It refused the reflection, focusing instead on the frame. The timestamp glitched, rolling back 3 seconds. A faint insect buzz whispered through the speakers, like old tape remembering what it used to be. The man tore an envelope. Paper fluttered to the floor, sliding under the couch. I bent to check mine. Nothing but the dust line I expected. The girl turned toward the lens. Not at it, toward it, like looking at a window at night. Her lips shaped a word without sound. Only the tape's whir filled the silence. My wall clock ticked. The timestamp hurried to catch it. 13:16, 13:17. Both landed together. The man in the tape turned his head, not to the camera, to my hallway, as if he'd heard the same tick. The frame trembled once, like the hand holding it was tired. I didn't blink. The tape did. The tape didn't stop. The man in the picture wandered into the kitchen. He moved like he'd lived there for years, opening drawers without looking, reaching for mugs in the right place, tilting his head just enough to avoid the crooked photo above the couch. The woman filled the kettle. She tapped the counter twice with her fingers, the same nervous habit I have when waiting for water to boil. And the little girl, she climbed onto the couch, my couch. She hugged the rabbit tight and rested her chin on her knees, staring at a TV I couldn't see. The camera lens wheezed, breathing in focus and out again. For a second the picture blurred, then sharpened, and I realized the man was holding today's mail. My mail. He peeled open an envelope with my name printed in the corner. He didn't flinch at it, didn't hesitate, like it had always belonged to him. I looked down at my own table again. Bare. The timestamp jumped forward 2 minutes, then snapped back. The kettle whistled in their kitchen. Mine stayed cold. The woman poured 3 mugs of tea. She passed one to the man, one to the girl, then sat. Her laugh echoed again. Exactly the same laugh I'd heard before. Too exact. As if the tape only had one version of her voice and was splicing it in wherever it fit. The girl leaned toward the man and whispered something. Static fuzzed out her words, but I swear I saw her lips form mine. My name. The man smiled like he'd been waiting for her to say it. He looked toward the bookshelf, toward that missing space. His hand lifted slightly, like he was about to reach for a camera that wasn't there. The lens trembled. The frame drifted closer, pulling toward their faces, then catching itself as if yanked back. I realized my hands were clenched. My nails left crescents in my palms. The girl looked at the lens again, not curious, not afraid, just aware. She mouthed another word. This time I could almost hear it under the hiss. Stay. My living room inched darker, though I hadn't touched the lights. On screen, the man turned, eyes sliding past the lens, past me, into the hallway, my hallway. The camera began to pan, slow, intentional, like it knew exactly where it was supposed to go next. The camera wavered as if someone had brushed against the tripod. The picture lurched sideways, breathing static. For a split second, it caught the hallway mirror, not the reflection inside it, but the frame. Like the tape refused to acknowledge glass. The family walked past without turning their heads, but their shadows bent the wrong way, folding into the mirror instead of stretching across the carpet. I leaned forward. The screen brightened, colors blooming too hot, like the tape was overexposed. The mirror filled the shot, and for the first time, they weren't in it. No man, no woman, no little girl. Just the empty hallway, and something else. A tall, pale figure stood where the mirror should have shown the family. Its face was blurred, like the tape kept trying to erase it, but couldn't. Every few frames, its head snapped toward the lens, jittering forward like bad stop motion, closer each time the static cleared. The timestamp stuttered. 1931, 1929, 1930. I looked at my own mirror. Just my hallway, nothing wrong. But when the figure leaned closer on screen, I swore I heard the faint pop of glass straining in my own walls. The tape's audio, once a soft hiss, deepened into a low, wet drag, like magnetic tape spooling across something it shouldn't. The little girl reappeared, suddenly framed in front of the mirror. She held her rabbit high, blocking the figure's head. She looked straight into the lens, lips trembling, and mouthed a single word. I leaned in, straining for sound. The TV spat static, violent, sharp, like claws across the inside of the speakers. Behind her, the pale shape tilted, bending at an angle no spine should allow. Its hand pressed flat against the mirror glass. On their side, my hallway light flickered. On screen, the mirror shuddered, and for a single frame, I saw my own living room reflected inside it. Not theirs, mine. And in that reflection, the TV was still on, but I wasn't sitting on the couch anymore. I didn't rewind. The tape did, stuttering back 2 seconds before pushing forward on its own. The mirror shot was gone. The camera sat low again, aimed at the couch. The man and woman spoke in looped fragments, words shaved to syllables. The girl stood now, rabbit pressed to her chest, hair static lifted like a storm was in the glass. The timestamp hiccuped. 2103, 2102, 2104. In the corner, SP blinked on and off, like the machine couldn't decide what mode it was in. The girl stepped forward, not like a child, like a cut. One frame near the couch, the next 3 feet closer. The rabbit's ear dragged a silver scratch across the picture, the audio thinned to a hot hiss. Beneath it, for a second, I heard my own fridge motor hum, real, behind me. On screen, their kitchen stayed silent. She raised a finger, pointed at the camera. Her mouth formed a word. You. The man looked past the lens toward the hallway. The woman froze mid-laugh. Her face locked in place while the room kept breathing. Static rolled down the screen, smearing them into streaks before snapping back sharp. The camera twitched toward the mirror. The picture bowed, then forced itself back to center. The timestamp raced. For one frame, play flickered to rec, then vanished. The girl pointed again, slower, her lips shaped, here. My room felt smaller. In the speakers, my own breath returned half a second late, like the tape was borrowing it. The man reached under the couch, pulled back dust. His eyes went to the rabbit, then to me. The frame lurched forward as if nudged. I glanced at my stand. Nothing had moved. The girl pressed the rabbit's bare ear to the lens. The world went black velvet, tape hiss humming. Inside the VCR, something clicked. A motor whined high-pitched. The picture snapped back, brighter, crooked. The shadows fell wrong. 2200. The timestamp matched my wall clock. The girl mouthed again, here. The screen tore in half, stitched back, and now the camera faced the hallway. The mirror waited just out of frame. Then, soft, mechanical, I heard a record button click. I didn't touch the stack of tapes on my shelf for days. But when I finally gave in, it wasn't the blank cassette I pulled. It was one of mine, an old recording of a football game I taped years ago. I slid it in, expecting grainy plays, bad commercials. Instead, the whistle blew, and then the picture fractured. For 1 second, the players ran as normal. The next, a dinner table appeared. Not mine, theirs. The man and woman sat across from each other, a roast between them. The little girl picked at peas. The image tore like a page ripped from a magazine. Then the football game slammed back in, as if nothing had happened. I rewound. The splice was still there. It wasn't a glitch. It was burned into the tape. I tried another cassette. Same thing. A sitcom from the 90s, laugh track blaring, until the track stuttered into static. When it cleared, the girl stared into the lens again, rabbit half missing in her grip. She mouthed a word. Not you this time. Stop. The laugh track didn't return. The sitcom faces kept moving, but no sound came out. Their mouths stretched into shapes I couldn't read. By the third tape, I wasn't breathing. This one was supposed to be a documentary, grainy lions on an African plain, but mid-hunt, the frame cut. And there it was, my own living room, my couch, but empty. The timestamp glowed steady, 5 minutes ahead of my wall clock. The kettle and the tape clicked on, and a second later, mine did too. I tore the plug from the wall. The TV went black, but the kettle still screamed. I looked back. The VCR's display no longer said play. It pulsed red, rec. The slot rattled, tape grinding like it didn't want to stop. I hit eject. The machine hissed, stuttered, and finally spit the cassette out. But when I turned it over in my hands, it wasn't the football game, not the sitcom, not the documentary. It was the black tape, the same deep scratches, the same rubbed-out masking strip. Like every tape I owned was bleeding into it, like it was swallowing them whole. And when I tilted it toward the light, the faint indentation of the scrubbed writing finally showed itself. Not a title, not a label, just one word. Etched shallow, but there. Mine. The tape whirred when I pressed play again. I almost expected nothing, just static, maybe a black screen. But it gave me the same living room, my living room, only this time the family wasn't there. The couch was empty, the lamp burned on, the coffee table sat bare. It looked exactly like my real living room, except I wasn't sitting in it. The camera on the screen crept forward, jittering with each frame, as if whoever held it was walking slowly toward the couch. The focus pulsed, Static hissed. The timestamp blinked. 41 minutes, 19 seconds. 41 minutes, 20 seconds. The sound of breathing filled the speakers. Not mine, not theirs. A slow inhale, ragged, too close to the microphone. I leaned back. My chair creaked. On the tape, the same sound followed a half-second later, like it had been waiting to echo me. The camera turned toward the hallway, toward my hallway. I froze. On screen, the front door stood closed. Then, with a jolt that bent the frame, the camera zoomed in on the doorknob. The metal shimmered under the lamplight, bright enough that I could see shapes moving in the reflection. Someone was standing there, just out of frame. The timestamp glitched, falling back, repeating the same second 3 times. 41:27, 41:27, 41:27, and then knock. Not from the tape, from my door. A hollow, 3-beat knock that rattled the wood behind me. The screen flickered white, the picture stuttered, but the camera and the tape didn't move. It stayed locked on the door, waiting. Another knock, harder this time. My walls shook. I stood without meaning to. My pulse drowned the hiss of the static. On the tape, the doorknob began to turn, slowly, like someone testing how far they could twist before the latch would catch. The breathing from the speakers grew frantic, overlapping mine until I couldn't tell which was which. I stumbled toward the VCR, ready to hit stop, ready to rip the cassette out. And the tape spoke, not in voices, in text. Blocky white letters burned into the corner of the screen where the timestamp had been. Answer it. The knocking stopped. The picture froze. And in the silence that followed, I realized the whirring of the tape hadn't stopped at all. It was still running. It was recording. The pounding on the door never stopped. Even as the tape reset to 0 and began again, the knocking kept perfect rhythm with the counter ticks. On screen, me, carrying the cardboard box, walking up the steps to my own apartment. But I was already here, frozen in front of the TV, the footage cut. Now it was me inside, opening the front door. The angle was impossible, filmed from a corner where no camera had ever been. The man on the tape, myself, set the box down, then turned and looked straight at the lens, straight at me. His lips moved, and instead of audio through the TV, the words came from inside the VCR itself, grinding through the machine's gears. You already pressed play. The pounding at my real door grew louder. I didn't move. On screen, the man, my double, reached for the knob. The frame jittered, glitched, froze. The tape version of me turned his head as if waiting for me to obey. Then the voices layered. The tape. The knocking. The family whispering behind the static. All of them chanting one command. Answer it. My doorknob rattled. Metal bent, scraped. Something was on the other side. I clutched the remote, but the picture wouldn't stop, wouldn't pause, wouldn't die. The family appeared again, not on tape, but on my couch. The man, the woman, the girl with the rabbit. Their mouths never moved, but the rabbit whispered for them, "Stop watching." Static devoured the screen. The pounding stopped. The VCR ejected the tape with a violent click. The cassette was warm, breathing like a living thing, and the faded masking tape label that had always been blank wasn't blank anymore. One word etched deep into it as if it had always been there. My name.